When I was 18, my cousins scraped my uncle's new car and blamed me. No one let me talk, they just yelled and sent me home crying. I missed prom, graduation, all of it. A month later, at a family cookout, he joked about framing me so easily, right as my uncle held up the dashcam footage. I never thought a prom night could turn into the single most humiliating moment of my life. But when my cousin framed me, and my family chose to believe him without a second thought, I knew I couldn't let it go. Not ever. My mom, Sarah's, old default ringtone usually just annoyed me, but that night, it echoed through the hall like a warning. I was 18, tie halfway done, trying to look decent for prom. Sarah called out, "Ethan, your uncle's here." Her voice was tight, too tight. I knew instantly something was wrong, even before I stepped out of my room. My name is Ethan, and at 18, I lived with Sarah in our small, slightly crooked house. We weren't wealthy, but she always made sure I had what I needed. I'd worked hard, earned good grades, and somehow scored a prom date with Chloe, my longtime crush. It was supposed to be perfect, one of those core memories everyone talks about. Instead, I stood in the living room, staring at my Uncle David like he'd grown a second head. He wasn't just angry, he was yelling. Red-faced, veins popping, full-volume fury. His new charcoal gray BMW, the one he'd bragged about for months, had a massive scratch along the driver's side. And he was convinced I did it. "You think I wouldn't notice?" he bellowed, a trembling finger aimed at me. "You little brat. That car was perfect. Then you come along, and this happens." I was stunned, frozen. My first instinct was to laugh, thinking it was some twisted joke, but his glare told me otherwise. "Wait, what are you talking about?" I managed, "I haven't even been near your car." Then, from behind him, stepped Noah, my cousin, a year younger, radiating that smug, golden child energy. He always got away with everything, always knew the right words, the right expressions. He stood there, arms crossed, feigning heartbreak. "I saw him, Uncle David," Noah said quietly. Ethan had keys in his hand. He actually looked mad. I didn't want to say anything, but... His voice trailed off, but the damage was done. Uncle David's eyes practically sparked with fury. Sarah tried to intervene, to calm him, to ask for proof, but he wasn't listening. None of them were. Not even Nana Eleanor, sitting silently in the corner, lips pressed into a tight line, like some ancient judge. I kept trying to explain I hadn't been near the car, I'd been in my room getting ready for the last hour. But it didn't matter. Their minds were already made up. Aunt Carol, Noah's mom, chimed in, calling me ungrateful, claiming I always had a chip on my shoulder. My prom suit suddenly felt too tight, suffocating me. "Get out of my house," Uncle David declared, his voice trembling with anger. "Now." And just like that, everything I'd looked forward to, prom, the after party, my last night with friends, was gone. Sarah stood in the doorway as I stumbled outside, wiping my eyes. She didn't say anything, just watched. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Prom photos flooded social media, and I couldn't bring myself to look. I skipped graduation too. I told Sarah I was sick, but really, I couldn't face them all. My family, sitting there, pretending nothing had happened. Like they hadn't accused me of something so absurd, so humiliating, never once even questioning if it was true. But what truly stuck, what hurt the most, was Noah. The way he looked at me when I left. That tiny smirk playing on the corner of his mouth. It wasn't just a lie. It was calculated. And everyone bought it. Weeks later, maybe a full month, I saw him again. A family cookout, celebrating my cousin Mia's birthday. Hot dogs, lawn chairs, the usual stuff. I didn't even want to go, but Sarah insisted it was time to move on. So, I went, hoping to fade into the background. But of course, Noah found me. He always did. "You look better without that suit anyway," he grinned, brushing past with a soda. I froze. The way he said it, it wasn't casual. It was mocking, intentional. I stood there, watching him laugh with his dad by the grill, like nothing had ever happened. Then, just as Uncle David took a sip of his beer, Noah said it. Loud enough for a few people to hear, including me. Man, I can't believe they all bought it. Framing Ethan was way too easy. That grin again. Arrogant, careless, stupid. But this time, Uncle David didn't laugh. He paused, turned, and slowly, silently, walked toward the garage where he kept his tools. I followed his eyes as he disappeared. A minute passed. Then 2. The party kept going. Laughter, kids running around, but my stomach twisted into knots. When Uncle David came back out, he wasn't holding a beer or charcoal. He held something small, rectangular, and black, his dash cam. And for the first time in weeks, Noah stopped smiling. I wish I could say that moment Noah got caught was quick, loud, and satisfying. That there was instant justice, that the whole family gasped, turned on him, and apologized right there in the backyard while Uncle David played the footage like a courtroom drama. But real life doesn't work like that. It's slower. Stickier. More awkward. And sometimes, even when the truth is dangling right in front of people's faces, they squint at it, pretend they don't see it, or worse, try to explain it away. When Uncle David walked out with that dash cam, the shift in the air was subtle, but I felt it like a punch to the ribs. His eyes weren't angry, or even confused. They were focused, like something had finally clicked. He didn't say a word, just tapped the camera against his palm a couple of times, looking over at Noah, who'd gone from smirking idiot to pale statue in about 5 seconds. Funny thing, Uncle David said, his voice low but carrying across the lawn. I never checked the footage from that day. Figured it wasn't worth it. But you saying that just now? Well, now I'm curious. The grill sizzled. Someone turned down the Bluetooth speaker. And I swear even the kids stopped screaming for a second. Aunt Carol rushed over, fake laughing like this was all a big joke. Oh, come on, David. He's just kidding around. Boys tease each other. That's what cousins do. But Uncle David wasn't listening. He walked past her, nodding toward his laptop on the patio table. Let's find out. It took maybe 10 minutes to load the footage. I stood off to the side, trying not to get my hopes up. I didn't want to believe justice was coming. This family had let me down too many times. Yet, I couldn't tear my eyes from that screen. Uncle David fast-forwarded through the static dashboard view, driveway, garage, trees swaying. Then the moment. There it was, clear as day. Noah walking up to the car with keys in hand, pausing. Looking over his shoulder, then dragging those keys along the driver's side door in one smooth, deliberate motion. He even had the nerve to smirk at the camera, not knowing it was angled just low enough to catch him. The footage stopped. Silence. No one spoke for a long time. Noah opened his mouth first. That's not me. Even he didn't sound convinced. Aunt Carol stepped in, her voice sharp. That could be anyone. The lighting's bad. You can't even see his face. Uncle David stared at her. You don't think I recognize my own son? Aunt Carol's face twitched. I'm saying it could be someone else. A friend, a neighbor's kid. Uncle David didn't say anything. He just stood up, took the dash cam, and walked back into the garage. He didn't yell, didn't slam anything, just shut the door behind him. That was the last anyone saw of him for the rest of the party. And here's where you might think the tide turned in my favor. That people apologized. That anyone, said, sorry, Ethan. We were wrong. But nope, that didn't happen. Instead, everything just got worse. Noah avoided me like the plague. Aunt Carol made herself the victim, telling everyone Uncle David was overreacting and emotionally unstable since turning 40. And Nana Eleanor, sweet, quiet, all-seeing Nana, looked at me with an uncomfortable sadness, like I was now a source of shame for having been right. That was the real kicker. It wasn't that they believed I was guilty anymore. It was that they didn't want to admit they were wrong. Worse, they wanted me to move on. Let it go. Don't let one thing ruin your relationship with the family, Nana Eleanor said one afternoon while I helped her water the garden. It's just a scratch on a car, Ethan. I wanted to scream. It wasn't about the car. It was about everything. Noah lied. He ruined one of the most important nights of my life. He humiliated me in front of the whole family. And no one, not a single person, stood up for me when I needed them. They didn't even ask me what happened. They just took his word and threw me away like I was disposable. And now that the truth was out, instead of fixing it, they wanted to pretend it never happened. That's when I realized something cold and clear: I didn't belong in this family. Not really. I was always on the outside, always this nice cousin, the quiet one, the one who didn't cause trouble. And they liked me just fine as long as I stayed in my lane. But the second I became inconvenient, they cut me off without a second thought. I started pulling away, didn't show up to weekly dinners, stopped answering texts. Uncle David tried to reach out once, a short message saying, "Want to talk?" But I didn't respond. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't know what he wanted: an apology, closure, or just a way to stop feeling guilty. Meanwhile, Noah went back to being Noah. He never said a word to me. Never owned up to what he did. And somehow, he still got celebrated. He got a new car for his 18th birthday, some old Honda Civic that everyone fawned over like it was a Ferrari. He posted selfies in it on Instagram, captioned, "Earned it," with a bunch of flex emojis. I almost laughed. Almost. But that laugh died quickly when I saw what happened next. One afternoon, scrolling through social media, half distracted, I noticed Noah's latest post. A group photo, him and his friends at a beach bonfire. But what caught my attention wasn't the photo, it was the caption: "Glad Ethan didn't make it. Don't need any drama this time." My chest tightened. I checked the comments. 2 friends laughed it off with emojis. Someone else replied, "Dude, you're still milking that? Let it go." But one comment stood out. His girlfriend, Jessica, a girl I'd never met, wrote, "Wait, he's the cousin you framed? You're such a menace." He liked the comment. I felt sick. So, not only did he lie to the whole family, ruin my reputation, and walk away without consequence, he was proud of it. Telling the story like some prank he pulled in high school. Bragging. Turning my humiliation into a joke. That was the moment I snapped. That was the breaking point. It wasn't just about prom anymore, or the scratch, or the dash cam. It was about all of it. Every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every lie they let him get away with. Every time someone told me to just move on. I realized something cold and clear that day: they didn't deserve my silence anymore. They didn't deserve my kindness. And I wasn't going to wait around for them to give me the justice I deserved. No, I was going to take it. Hitting rock bottom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just quiet. I didn't scream or punch walls. I didn't spiral out or make a big emotional speech. I just stopped showing up. The day after I saw that Instagram comment thread, I deleted the app from my phone, logged out of everything: group chats, Facebook, Discord. I didn't want to see their names. Didn't want to read their fake little jokes or look at their smiling faces in some new photo while pretending like nothing ever happened. If I wasn't a part of the joke, I was the punchline. For the first couple of weeks, I was numb. I'd wake up around noon, stare at the ceiling, skip breakfast. Sarah tried to get me to talk, but I couldn't explain it without sounding bitter or crazy. She didn't know about the post. She didn't know Noah had been bragging. All she knew was that her son didn't go to prom, didn't walk at graduation, and now sat at home doing nothing. I could see the worry in her eyes, and it made me feel worse, like I was disappointing her just by existing. Then came the graduation parties. My mailbox filled with pastel invites and shiny cards that said things like, "Class of the Future." I didn't open any of them, just left them stacked on my desk like some cruel reminder of everything I'd missed. Sarah was invited to most, I think, but she didn't go. She stayed home with me, watching bad sitcoms and pretending like nothing was wrong. That was her way of showing love. I didn't apply to any colleges that summer. I had planned to, computer science, graphic design, but after everything with the family, I just couldn't bring myself to think that far ahead. The idea of being surrounded by people, of trying to start over, felt exhausting. So, I let the deadline pass. Sarah didn't push. I think she could tell I wasn't ready. But even in the middle of all that quiet, the world kept spinning. Bills came in. The fridge got empty. And eventually, Sarah sat me down with a look that said, "We need to talk," without her having to say it. "I know you've been through a lot," she said gently. "But it's time to start thinking about next steps." I nodded. I didn't argue. I knew she was right. That night, I sat at my computer for the first time in weeks. Not for social media, but for job listings. I wasn't picky. I wasn't proud. I just needed something, anything that would pull me out of the fog. After a couple of hours of scrolling, I found a local print shop looking for a part-time assistant. Mostly helping with orders, sorting designs, prepping files. It paid minimum wage, but I didn't care. I sent in my resume, crossed my fingers, and hoped someone would take a chance on me. They did. A week later, I had my first shift. The print shop was this small place tucked between a dry cleaner and a vape store. But it had a charm to it, cluttered shelves, a wall of paper samples, the faint smell of toner and coffee. My boss, Omar, was this laid-back guy in his 30s with a ponytail and a dry sense of humor. He didn't ask about my GPA or extracurriculars. He didn't care that I hadn't gone to prom or that my cousin had turned my senior year into a personal hell. All he cared about was whether I could learn the software and not break the printers. And for the first time in a long time, I felt useful. I learned fast. Photoshop, Illustrator, print calibration. By my third week, I was designing flyers and tweaking logos. Omar started trusting me with more complicated projects, custom wedding invitations, business cards, even a school's yearbook layout. And with every task, I felt a little stronger, like maybe I wasn't broken after all. I saved every paycheck. I didn't go out. Didn't spend a dime unless I had to. My friends from school slowly stopped texting. And honestly, I didn't mind. I needed space. I needed to rebuild from the inside out. Brick by brick. And somewhere in the middle of all that rebuilding, I found something surprising. I was actually good at this. Design, layouts, fonts, branding. I started staying late after shifts, working on mock-up projects just for fun. Omar noticed. He offered to let me use the backroom computer after hours if I wanted to build a portfolio. "You've got an eye for detail," he said. That's rare. It was the first real compliment I'd gotten in months, and it meant more than I could admit. By winter, I had clients. Small ones, local businesses, Etsy sellers, a couple of school clubs, but they paid. Not much, but enough. I made a little website, built a brand name, even printed my own business cards through the shop. Omar let me use his equipment on weekends if I covered the material costs. Sarah cried when I handed her one of my cards, Ethan Wells, freelance designer. It didn't feel like much, but to her and to me, it was proof that I was still standing, still rising. I even started taking online classes. Nothing official, just YouTube tutorials, free Coursera programs, graphic design theory PDFs. I soaked it all up like a sponge. Color theory, typography, UI/UX. I kept a notebook where I wrote down every idea, every logo concept that popped into my head. My mind was alive again. For the first time since that awful night, I had something that was mine. But success doesn't erase pain. It just gives it less room to spread. The family still hadn't apologized. I saw them sometimes at weddings, birthdays, random events, and every time, they acted like we were fine, like nothing ever happened. Aunt Carol gave me tight, fake smile greetings. Noah barely looked at me. Nana Eleanor treated me like a guest instead of her grandson. And every time I left one of those events, the anger came back. Not hot and sharp like before, but slow and cold, settling in my chest like ice. I didn't want revenge back then. Not really. I just wanted them to acknowledge what they did. To say sorry. To look me in the eye and admit they were wrong. But they never did. And so, the part of me that had healed, the part that had quietly rebuilt brick by brick, started wondering if maybe forgiveness wasn't the only way forward. Maybe, just maybe, there was another path. One that didn't involve screaming or public drama. One that involved patience and precision. Because here's the thing about working in design, especially for local clients. You start to know things. Who's opening a business? Who's planning a wedding? Whose logos are being registered? And whose branding is just a cheap Canva template? And one day, about a year after everything had gone down, a familiar name popped up in a casual email chain, Noah Mills, opening a boutique clothing brand. He was looking for a logo. My logo. You ever get that feeling when something just drops into your lap so perfectly that it has to be fate? That was me, sitting in the print shop's back room, reading the email thread about a new fashion startup in town, and seeing my cousin's name at the bottom like a poorly written joke, Noah Mills, co-founder of Hollow Streetwear. At first, I just stared at it. Thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe there were two Noah Millses running around trying to sell overpriced t-shirts. But then I clicked the link attached to the mock-up site, and there he was, front and center, arms crossed in some wannabe GQ pose under a pretentious quote that read, "Rebellion is luxury." I nearly choked on my iced coffee. The site was half-finished, slapped together on a free builder template, broken links, placeholder images. But the idea was clear, Noah was trying to rebrand himself as some visionary clothing entrepreneur. And get this, he was planning a full launch event. Custom merchandise, pop-up booth, local sponsors, the whole deal. I sat back in my chair and laughed. A full, real laugh, the kind I hadn't let myself feel in over a year. Now, I want to make one thing clear. I didn't immediately plan to sabotage him. I wasn't sitting there twirling a metaphorical mustache. But something shifted. In me. A little click. A thought that said, "You're not the same scared kid they framed anymore. You've built something. You've earned something." And suddenly, I realized I had power now. Real power. You see, in the past 6 months, I'd become the go-to freelance designer for half the local businesses in town. Print shops, photographers, musicians, wedding planners, you name it. If someone needed a clean logo or a sleek website banner, they came to me. And I knew people. I knew printers, suppliers, event organizers. I knew what made a brand look legitimate. And I knew what made it fall apart. So, I leaned back, cracked my knuckles, and thought, okay, Noah, let's see how much you care about appearances. The first step was gathering intel, quietly. I didn't want to tip anyone off. Luckily, I had the perfect in. Noah's business partner, a kid named Kyle, had already sent a cold email inquiry to the shop asking about bulk printing costs for hoodies and tees. Omar had forwarded it to me like he always did with new leads. Looks like a student project. You want to handle this one? I replied yes, faster than I probably should have. I crafted the most professional, helpful response I could. Acted like I'd never heard of Noah in my life. I offered design consultation, brand mock-ups, even a special discount if they ordered within the month. A few hours later, Kyle replied with enthusiasm. Awesome. Let me loop in my partner. And just like that, Noah Mills slid into my inbox. I played it cool. Nice to meet you, Noah, I wrote, excited to help Hollow Streetwear get off the ground. He didn't recognize me. Not right away. I'd grown my hair out a bit. My email signature just said Ethan W. And my website was under my brand name, Greymark Designs. No photo, no mention of high school, just clean, minimalist branding and an impressive portfolio. He probably thought I was just another faceless freelancer hungry for work, and that was perfect. We set up a Zoom call to discuss his brand identity. He showed up wearing a hoodie with his placeholder logo, an awful-looking crown/skull hybrid that looked like it was drawn in Microsoft Paint. He rambled on about wanting edgy minimalism and urban rebellion aesthetics. I listened, nodded, took notes. Not once did he look at me closely. I wanted to test something. So, near the end of the call, I casually said, just curious. How do you come up with the name Hollow? Noah leaned back in his chair, grinning like a kid who thought he was profound. Well, it's about how society's expectations are empty, you know, like we're forced to follow all these rules that don't mean anything. My brand is about rejecting that. Being unapologetically yourself. I had to mute myself for a second to keep from laughing. Unapologetically yourself, huh? Like lying to your whole family and framing your cousin? After the call, I got to work. I sent him a batch of logo options. Clean, sharp, modern-looking. A huge step up from his original mess. He ate it up. Bro, these are fire, he replied. You killed it. I told him I could help with apparel mock-ups and even build the full website. Let's get you launch ready, I said. But we'll need to move fast if you're planning that pop-up event. He was all in. Over the next couple of weeks, I became his right hand. He trusted me, sent me his plans, the sponsorship list, the vendor contacts, even the guest list for the launch event. He was hosting it at a local event space, The Junction, a renovated warehouse downtown used for pop-up markets and private parties. I'd done flyers for a charity event there a month prior, so I already knew the staff. More importantly, I knew the event manager, Maya. She liked me. I'd helped her fix a last-minute banner printing mistake once, and she remembered. So when I called and casually asked who had booked the venue for October 14th, she checked and said some streetwear brand. Hollow something. I smiled and said, funny story, my cousin's running it. Oh, no way, she said. Small world, I replied. You could say that. I told her I might swing by that night to see the setup, family support and all, I joked. She said I was welcome anytime. So now I had full access to his brand identity, his logo and files, his clothing mock-ups, his supplier list, his event date and venue. And he still hadn't figured out who I was. But this wasn't just about embarrassing him. That would have been too easy. I wanted Noah to feel what I felt. The slow erosion, the quiet humiliation. I wanted him to watch everything almost fall into place and then slip right through his fingers. So I started setting the pieces. Piece 1, Brand Sabotage. I created 3 alternate versions of Noah's new logo. Slight tweaks, subtle changes. One had a barely visible watermark embedded into the design, a phrase written in tiny letters, I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Another had the text fake hidden inside the crown's design, only visible if printed on certain fabrics. Then I uploaded all of them to the shared Google Drive folder he gave me. He never noticed. Piece 2, Supplier Mix-Up. He asked me to coordinate with the print supplier for the hoodies. Said he wanted 200 black pullovers with the logo embroidered across the front. I offered to handle it directly, but instead of sending the final corrected design, I sent the version with the watermark. On the mock-up, it looked identical, but once printed in high-res embroidery, that hidden phrase would show up, barely subtly, if you looked close enough. I approved the order myself and scheduled delivery for 3 days before the event. Piece 3, Website Launch. Noah wanted a sleek e-commerce site that would go live the same day as the event. I built it myself. Fast, beautiful, smooth transitions, integrated payment system. But on launch day, I would redirect the homepage to a 404 error message. One that read, site under review due to fraudulent claims. All reversible. All trackable to technical issues. And all perfectly timed to blow up right when people would be watching. Piece 4, The Final Stroke. I printed a poster. Just one, 24 by 36 inches, in full color, beautiful typography. At the top, it read, some people build brands. Others build lies. Below it was a QR code. The code led to an unlisted page on my portfolio site, a project breakdown, a case study, titled, The Hollow Brand, How a Lie Became a Business. And underneath, I uploaded the Dashcam footage, a timeline of the prom night incident, screenshots of Noah's Instagram comments, a write-up detailing how the brand was built on dishonesty. I didn't add my name. Didn't gloat. Just laid out the facts, neutrally, professionally, like a journalist reporting a case study. That was all I needed. A single poster hung at the venue right at the check-in booth. Maya said she'd let me set it up the night before as a surprise for Noah. It would be. Oh, it would be. Everything was in motion, and Noah had no idea. The day of the launch came crisp and clear. Early October, the kind where the morning air bites a little, but the sun promises warmth. I arrived at the junction before noon, wearing a plain black hoodie, nondescript jeans, and a ball cap pulled low over my eyes. Just another vendor, just another helper, just another background character. No one looked twice. Inside, the place buzzed with energy. Staff rolled in racks of hoodies, folding shirts onto long wooden tables with string lights dangling overhead. A DJ ran sound checks in the corner. Someone set up a photo booth. Everything looked good, like a real brand launch, like Noah had pulled it off. He showed up around 1 p.m. All swagger and fake humility, leather jacket, white tee, a phone in one hand, and iced coffee in the other. He looked around with pride, high-fived Kyle, complimented the setup. Looks sick, he said to no one in particular. Just how I imagined it. He passed me once, looked vaguely in my direction, but didn't recognize me. That moment almost broke me. Not because I was afraid, but because the level of detachment he had, it was surreal. To him, I was nothing. Some anonymous freelancer who'd helped out. Just another disposable tool in his self-made empire. But he was about to learn. Because the moment those hoodie boxes arrived, stacked in neat rows near the back, fresh off the delivery truck, I saw it in his eyes, that flicker of excitement like a kid opening birthday presents. He tore one box open, grabbed a black hoodie, and held it up to the light. Dude, he said, wide-eyed. These go hard. He yanked one on, posed in front of the mirror, leaning against the wall, adjusted the hood, then turned to Kyle. We need photos of this now. I slipped away before he could notice the embroidery, because he wouldn't. Not right away. 2 p.m. doors open. The crowd trickled in. Friends, family, classmates, a couple of fashion bloggers, even one local news photographer. Noah was in his element, shaking hands, posing for pictures, giving vague motivational quotes like, "It's not just clothing, it's a movement." I watched him play the role like he was born for it. Meanwhile, the poster I had placed at the entrance hung silently beside the check-in booth. People didn't notice it at first, but all it takes is one person. A guy near the front of the line leaned in to scan the QR code while waiting. Then whispers started spreading. Wait, what is this? Yo, this is about him. Is this real? Then phones started coming out. Screens lit up with the Dashcam footage. People zoomed in. Read the screenshots. Read everything. And then the moment hit like a dropped piano. Noah's own uncle, David, walked in. Now, I hadn't invited him. I hadn't reached out, but apparently Kyle had posted the event flyer online and tagged family and friends welcome. Uncle David had come out of curiosity. Maybe guilt, maybe curiosity. I'll never know. But he walked in just as one of the guests turned their phone to show someone else the footage. He stopped mid-step, stared at the screen, and froze. Then he looked up and saw the hoodie. The embroidery. The tiny, barely visible line right under the logo, stitched in a stylized font that looked like part of the design. I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Uncle David's face turned ashen. Noah hadn't noticed yet. He was too busy posing for selfies, still grinning, still floating on his imaginary throne. But the energy in the room changed. Laughter dimmed. Conversations turned to murmurs. People weren't paying attention to him anymore. They were paying attention to their phones. I stood near the back, watching it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. Not glee. Not pettiness. Just relief. Like exhaling after holding your breath for a year. And then came the moment I'd waited for. "Noah," someone said, holding up their phone. "What is this?" He blinked, walked over, glanced at the screen. I watched his smile flicker just for a second. I don't know what that is." "Some troll." Another guest spoke up. "It's your cousin. Ethan says you lied. Framed him. Ruined his senior year." More people joined in. "That's your dad in the footage. This is messed up, man. Is this true?" Noah started to sweat. No. This is fake. It's all fake. Someone's messing with me. It's probably Ethan. He's been salty for years." But no one was laughing, because someone else, Kyle, had just looked down at his own hoodie and noticed the embroidery. He froze. "Noah, dude, what the hell is this?" Noah turned. "What?" Kyle pointed at the text, read it aloud, and Noah finally looked down. The color drained from his face. He yanked the hoodie off so fast he nearly ripped the sleeve, held it up, stared at the stitching like it might vanish. But it didn't. It was right there under the logo on every hoodie. One of the fashion bloggers snapped a photo. Someone else live-streamed it. Noah looked around, desperate. He did this. Ethan did this. He hacked it. He edited the files. He ruined everything. But no one believed him anymore, because the website had already gone down. The screen behind the merch table, which had been looping promo videos, now displayed a message in plain white text. This brand was built on a lie. He scrambled to the laptop, unplugged it, yanked the power cord like it would undo everything. But it was too late. The whispers had turned into silence. The kind of silence that crushes a room. Then finally, a voice cut through it all. "Uncle David. I saw the footage, Noah. I saw it last year. I let it go because your mother begged me to. But I should have done something then. I'm doing it now." Noah turned to him, panicked. "Dad, no. Come on. It wasn't like that. I was a kid. I didn't think." "You did think," Uncle David countered. "You framed Ethan, lied to my face, and then bragged about it." Uncle David shook his head. "This isn't about a hoodie. This is who you are." And with that, he walked away. Just turned around and left. No yelling, no drama, just quiet disappointment. Noah stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by boxes of ruined merchandise, a ruined brand, and a crowd that had already started backing away. Nobody wanted to be seen near him now. He tried to grab Kyle's arm. "Dude, come on. We can fix this. We can spin it." Kyle pulled away. "We're done, man." He left. Then the DJ packed up. Then the photographers. And within 20 minutes, the pop-up launch that was supposed to be Noah's grand entrance into the fashion world was over. Just like that. He didn't say another word. He sat on a folding chair, staring at the floor while guests walked around him like he wasn't even there. I didn't approach him. I didn't gloat. I just quietly left, hoodie up, blending into the crowd. But before I stepped out the door, I passed by the entrance one last time and saw Aunt Carol, his mom, standing there. She must have arrived late. She looked at the poster, then at me. Recognition flashed in her eyes. "You," she whispered. I met her gaze and nodded, then walked past her without a word. The aftermath? Well, it wasn't fireworks and lawsuits. It was something better, real-life consequences. Noah's little brand never launched. Sponsors pulled out. The event venue blacklisted him. The photos and footage circulated just enough to ruin his visionary image in the local business community. His reputation never recovered. He tried to rebrand 6 months later under a new name. Didn't go anywhere. Kyle started a clothing line of his own. I helped him with the design, anonymously, of course. He paid well and didn't ask questions. I heard it's doing fine. As for me, my portfolio exploded. People loved the Hollow brand case study, not because it was petty, but because it showed strategy, detail, restraint. I got offers from creative agencies, startups, even a few out-of-state clients. Omar gave me a corner office in the shop and started calling me his secret weapon. I took a full-time contract with a media firm a few months later. Moved out. Got my own place. A clean space, white walls, big desk. And on that desk sits one thing. A single black hoodie, folded neatly. The embroidery barely visible unless you really look. I lied to ruin my cousin's life. Every time I see it, I remember that kid, 18 years old, standing outside his house in a prom suit, crying with no one listening. I remember how alone he felt, how small. And I remember the moment he stopped waiting for justice and decided to build it himself. But after all that, was the satisfaction truly worth the years of quiet resentment, of feeling like a stranger to your own blood? What would you have done?